It is progress on a journey that you're taking. It's progress on understanding that you're making. It's change in processes, change sometimes in production, in operations. So people get a bit tense when reporting is mentioned because they think they need to be doing everything in just one-off a task. But it is a journey of change.
Welcome to Sustainability Transformations podcast, where we explore bold ideas to drive positive change for people, community, and business. Today, we are looking at the engine of any transformation, the workforce. My guest is Muna Merghani, a trainer, consultant, and practitioner. She's a powerhouse in the world of organizational transformation, specializing in a unique dual discipline of integrating HR operations with sustainability strategy. Welcome to the show. You say, do not start reporting yet. In a world which is obsessed with data and disclosure, isn't that professional suicide? Or what is the race to report actually the biggest risk for a company right now?
Thank you so much, Enoch. Thank you for having me. And yes, I have to say that I find it a bit troubling that the hype now is all about reporting. You find a lot of companies just discussing reporting, a lot of consultants trying to sell ERPs, systems, using AI to collect data and making it all about reporting. I find a lot of risks there. A risk of failing to understand the topic of sustainability and ESG in its depth, failing to understand and implement it properly, and more importantly, failing or risking of making this the sole responsibility of sustainability practitioners, while it's everyone's job within a company. It starts from having responsibilities that lie with the board of directors, the legal department, the finance department, the HR department. So usually, we jump to reporting, but in my understanding, reporting comes at the end of the journey. So we report when we finish a task, we report when we finish a process, we report when we finish a journey. But at one and the same time, there's no problem of reporting during the journey. But what are we actually reporting about? So I really feel that a lot of companies, because reporting has become in some countries mandatory, that other countries, even those where the reporting is not yet mandatory, are just jumping to reporting. And there are a lot of risks there, and it just waters down the topic to just fancy data that we put on paper and on websites, and risks achieving or making benefit of the ultimate goal of what sustainability is all about.
One risk that comes to mind is if you publicly report as part of this, then it can be an issue of greenwashing. So what other risk would you say apart from the greenwashing? And even there is the green hashing as well, where companies report and then a year later they change their values and so on. So what are, perhaps we can unpack, instead of just jumping into a report, and what are some of the risks companies have to be aware of, Mona?
Of course, there are the risks of, as you mentioned, greenwashing and your reputation when this comes out. There's also a risk of missing out on the benefits that could come to your company when you properly implement sustainability. This could be the risk of, not being able to unlock investments, funds that are a green finance, risks of, people boycotting your products and services when you do greenwashing and then it comes out to the light. There are a lot of risks, but the most important risk, in my opinion, is that you miss out on your people or people in your organization really understanding the concept and adopting it. It's the most direct, and yes, it takes time, but it's the most direct way of embedding sustainability in your organization. It's not rocket science. The issue is that there are a lot of jargon, a lot of words, but it's not rocket science. The easiest way to do it would be to just understand it and involve all the departments within your company and just avoid all of these risks of being called a greenwasher, having people boycott your products, missing out on green finance opportunities.
You mentioned foundations are in place, and in my field, When I say foundation, I think around operations. So when a company is counting the carbons around the energy that they use, instead of just focusing on the carbon emissions related to the energy for heating and cooling of their buildings or processes, I see that to be an example of foundation. So can you help us unpack what are some of the sustainability foundations that companies need to focus on before jumping into the outputs of the reporting? Because ultimately it's the inputs, then you get some results, and then you report the results. So perhaps we can unpack a little bit around those foundations.
Yeah. So just to know if a company has a good foundation when it comes to sustainability and ESG, you can just go to any department, provided it's not the sustainability department. Let's take the human resources department, for example, and you go to that department and you ask them, what metrics are you following or are you reporting on or are you implementing? What activities are you implementing that would feed into any of the sustainability reports, the international sustainability guidelines, be it the Sustainable Development Goals, be it the Global Reporting Initiative, the UN Global Compact. The moment you mention sustainability in a department that is not sustainability related, they will point fingers to the sustainability team and tell you, go ask them. This is not part of what we do. And then this is the moment you realize that something is majorly wrong there, because sustainability practitioners or the sustainability department is the orchestrator of the concept, but they're not the ones that implement it. It's the other departments that need to understand it and implement it. So if we further unpack the role of the human resources department, it's how you have fair labor practices, how do you manage fair pay, and how do you evaluate the jobs and pay fairly for these jobs? Human rights practices, parental leave, also some matters related to anti-corruption, like do you have a gift giving receiving policy? So there's a lot that HR probably is doing, but are not linking it to sustainability. So sometimes the issue lies in the understanding and them not knowing this link, but sometimes they don't know about the matter at all, like the importance of maybe a minimum wage in developing countries. A lot of companies now are multinational corporations, and their operations go beyond geographical boundaries. So you could be having a part of your operations in a country where there's good governance and you have to, just do everything right. But you could have part of your operations in a country that is developing and does not have very good rule of law. Would it be, and it is sometimes, most times, that rules and regulations are not done as strict or as proper as in other countries where you have good governance. So what is HR doing about that? Are they taking care of minimum wage? Are they ensuring that their people are enrolled in health insurance and social insurance? And there are metrics also that are not very common, but that need to be looked at, as in equal pay based on gender, paternal leave, because some countries don't have that. And these are all metrics and things that departments need to look at, particularly the HR department. But we have other metrics related to finance, also related to anti-corruption. When it comes to supply chain, the sustainability of your resources and raw materials. Do you get raw materials or raw materials from countries that have child labor? The supply chain also sometimes deals with a lot of third-party providers. How are these service providers managing their pay? So, it's not only about the environment, and it's not only about, just calculating your carbon footprint.
From an HR perspective, I see the sentiment in the UK and online reports around when young people or millennials and Gen Z, who are now the majority of employees within the workforce, if money wasn't an issue, what other factors they look at? The reason for sharing this is linking back to HR. What if HR team in your recruitment and your company wants to be sustainable, you added some parts of the interview, making it clear to attract employees or future employees who resonate, who like to work for organizations. And then you also have the sales team who may be selling products related to a sustainable product or sustainable service. So is there any such tension between the sales and marketing trying to provide effective storytelling about their sustainability, which is related to reporting? But then you also have the sales team who are trying to sell the product by making sure that the product is not greenwashing per se, but it's also delivering sustainable products. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I do believe sometimes there is tension. In an ideal world, the sustainability team should be the one developing the sustainability report. Maybe marketing can help, with making it all like as per the company brand guidelines, helping them with like disseminating it. But the responsibility should lie with the sustainability team. But this is not always the case. And this is sometimes where the tension happens. And it also is related to what is the main objective of the company producing a sustainability report? Is it for showcasing for external stakeholders, or is it really to, safeguard the institutional memory and present and take stock of what they've been doing? So the objective guides how we do the report. Sometimes also the tension lies in the fact that sales and marketing are using it to further market their products. They're using it as a tool to increase sales, and sustainability team is doing it for, reflecting what they've been doing so far. So if the understanding is not aligned, issues will definitely arise. And the thing is that I'll take, for example, the UN Global Compact Sustainability Report. It is called the Communication on Progress, and I hear underlined on progress. So it is progress. It is progress on a journey that you're taking. It's progress on understanding that you're making. It's change in processes, change sometimes in production, in operations. So people get a bit tense when reporting is mentioned, because they think they need to be doing everything in just one-off a task. But it is a journey of change. So the fact that the report is called Communication on Progress should reassure us that we can only report about what we're doing now, and we can even mention the gaps and mention that these gaps, we acknowledge that we have these gaps and we are planning on doing A, B, C about them, or gaps that are not fit for that. We acknowledge them, but we cannot do them for the time being because of financial resources, because of the context where we're operating, or because they're not material to us. There's also the concept of materiality. So are we a company that uses a lot of energy and water in our production, and hence energy and water are material to us, and hence we need to do something about them? Or we are a company that uses a lot of labor, so human resources and people management is definitely material to our operations. I mean, to reduce this tension, the sales and marketing team have to understand what is sustainability all about and what is ESG is all about. And when you understand the concept, you have no option but to respect the ultimate goal of it. And it will just reduce this tension of, the marketing team want to have a fancy report and the sustainability is just resisting that. So, and there's also one other thing, Enock, and it's just that sustainability and marketing have a role to play that is very important when it comes to sustainability. It's way above and beyond what they're doing now. And to give you a clear example of that, I'll just refer to, for example, SDG 12 on responsible production and consumption. Sales and marketing have a lot they have a key role playing there. And for example, are the sales team selling products that are reliable, fit for consumption? Are they pushing for overconsumption or unnecessary consumption? This is happening a lot now, that you would find that sales are pushing for products to be consumed in a way that is unnecessary. And there are a lot of cases that happened before the baby killer formula example, for example, the that promoted baby formula over breastfeeding just because sales wanted to sell in a region where women are used to breastfeeding and prefer breastfeeding, and doctors now confirm that breastfeeding is the way to go. So the sales do have an ethical role to play. Marketing as well. Is the marketing team marketing the product with transparency and without exaggeration and without manipulation for people to end up using this product even if they do not need it? So the sales and marketing have a key role in sustainability, and they need to understand the concept, and they need to know how can they contribute to it, and how their role is one of the main pillars, be it in governance, in also influencing the products that are being produced. So usually they are the ones that are getting customer feedback. Are they feeding this back into the operation and production team so that, changes are made? So yeah, it's a bigger role than the reporting.
One of the key things with sustainability has to do with incentive structure, as you were talking around. It means you need the leadership of the organization to set the appropriate incentives for the sales and marketing. How important from that incentive, providing awareness, these discussions that we're talking about?
Yeah, this is very important. I see in a lot of companies, sustainability practitioners or the sustainability team is working in a silo. And this is like, you're just shooting yourself on the foot and you're not going to go anywhere. So I can give you an example of, one thing I did in the company I work for when I started facing resistance, particularly that we were operating in a developing country where there are a lot of issues. Production team would wake up to a new regulation set by the government that is, changing their budgets, their plans. People were really involved in firefighting and day-to-day operations. And then I come and start talking about sustainability and about waste management and about this and that, and they would really resist what we were trying to do and preach. The very first thing to do is to take a few steps back and then start explaining the concept clearly, run awareness raising sessions that are, tailored to each and every department and tailored to each and every tier of the organization, from the board of directors to the C-suite, to the heads of departments, to the general managers of all of your companies, to the laborers, to the HR team, to the supply chain team. Explain the concept and explain what's in it for them and how can they support. And then that's why it's a journey. It's not a one-off task that you do and you say, oh, now we have a very strong sustainability department or a very strong sustainability practice in the company. Each and every function needs to understand the concept and understand it in their own words. So for human resources, they would need to understand more about the international standards, about the human rights practices, about the right, to set an association and the right to bargain and all of that. The supply chain would need to understand about how green supply chain, what green supply chain is, how they need to be paying more attention to their suppliers and their practices, particularly if they are, bringing raw material from countries where there's no strong rule of law or good governance. So when you start by explaining and take it one step at a time, within the course of a couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years, you would look back and you would find that you would create a paradigm shift, you would create a change on understanding, and then that you had done that, and then you can start reporting, and then it sort of becomes like the DNA of the company or the group, and change will be easy. And the most important thing, frankly, I've seen fail in a lot of companies because the senior management did not consider it part as important. But regulations are helping with that. Now for a company to be listed in a stock market, it needs to issue its ESG reports. There's a lot of external factors that are helping, that are pushing for companies to adopt. And those who will not adopt it in the right way will just struggle and make the process just complicated. So it's easier to just take a few steps back, get everyone involved. In an ideal world, there should be no sustainability department. in an ideal world, each and every department will be doing what they need to do. They will have ethical practices. They will have good governance within the department. They'll be aware of their contribution or their impact they could be having on the environment and try to minimize that, be it that department, be it the production department, the operation, the financial. And there will be no sustainability department.
You mentioned about a journey. So somebody said journey, which is so true. A journey means we haven't reached the destination. And in fact, one of the ways I used to explain the difference between sustainability and ESG, I always say sustainability is that destination, the desired destination, and ESG is one of the processes you can use to arrive at that destination. So whether you want to fly by plane or you want to use a train or you want to use a car, ESG is one of those transport mechanisms to get to that destination. So that's good. Yeah. But I noticed that, for example, in 2023, business leaders had net zero achievement by 2036. Come 2024, one of the major consulting companies, I can't remember the real name, can't remember the name of that consulting company, but they found that within 12 months, they had changed the net zero from 2036 to 2050. So how was the advice?
This happens a lot, I think, because my advice would be for companies to not just jump on that train and follow the trend and the hype and commit. And then again, by committing, you would be shooting yourself on the foot. There are companies that are now moving, taking out these commitments from their website without even announcing it, because they realize that, without mentioning which company is it, but they realize that they have committed to something that they're not fully aware of. And it's done either for marketing purposes or for just, again, following the trend. So my advice would be just calm down. If it's not a regulation yet, don't make commitments that you're not fully aware of and that you do not, particularly commitments is net zero. And they require a lot of financial resources, because it would mean that you're changing how you do production, you're changing how you are using energy, changing how you are transporting your staff and how your staff are coming to work, how you bring in your raw material upstream, downstream. So it's a lot of changes. So if you are not fully aware of the implications of that commitment, please do not do it. And just, I've heard before, when there's a convention that needs to be ratified, a UN convention, and countries are ratifying it, that Japan does not ratify straight away, because they need to go back and make sure that they're ready and that the systems and the processes and the regulations and the laws in their country allow for this convention to be implemented. And this is really ethical, practical way of doing things. So they're not jumping on, oh yeah, we ratified convention X or convention Y. They go back and prep themselves to be able to ratify that convention and implement the laws and the convention and the sub-conventions within. So for me, this is just the logic and mature way of doing things. But unfortunately, I believe we live in a world where there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of keeping up appearances rather than doing something of substance.
It's clear that the leaders have opportunities to review. Companies committed to the net zero by 2030, 36 or 2040 with these third-party organizations. But then after they had announced, and by that time the companies realized, oh, okay, we didn't realize this is what we're getting ourselves into. So yes, these third-party organizations may have good credibility, but ultimately they have to make a choice. So I thought I would share that practical example on companies having their own internal protocol. So having shared that example, what would you share if you have any insights or advice for companies, leaders and sustainability managers to put some steps? So looking forward in the next 2 years or 2 to 3 years, more like a future trend, what in the sustainability excites you, or do you think is going to be the right approach?
Well, Enock, I think we've just highlighted a lot of the gaps and maybe the negative aspects of companies implementing it, but there are a lot of positive things being done. I see also a lot of companies, now tying or setting ESG KPIs to board members, to the board of directors, and even tying their variable pay to that. And this creates it creates a shift from, making this an external thing where companies are just going to report and say, yes, we're great, we're doing this and we're doing that, to an internal matter where actually not only because of the pay, but the fact that they're tying the variable pay of board members and senior managements in C-suite to ESG KPIs. First, it shows that everyone has a role to play. So the chief HR and the chief sustainability and the chief finance and the CEO and the chief business development, chief operating officer, they all have a role to play. And their pay is tied to making things change within the organization. And this is like a big companies, a lot of companies are doing that. And frankly, I'm not sure if this is happening in the Middle East, but it needs to start. And this will help make the topic a topic that is pushed from top to down. So changes will need to come from the top and trickle down. And then it will take time, but it will eventually become the culture of the organization. And this is one good thing that is happening. So I'm confident that this hype of reporting, of, net zeros will eventually settle, the dust will settle, and people will say, okay, we need to do this differently, because I'm sure that it's not going to work just by a consultant selling ERP systems to collect your ESG data, because you will sell the system and then people are like, okay, what do we need to, and this data does not exist because we don't do that in the first place. So then people will have to take a few steps back and realize that there's another easier but maybe longer way of doing things. And it is happening in some companies, and I'm hoping that it will catch up with other companies as well.
I'm glad you've, highlighted that there are a number of leaders who are doing good things. That's a good example of governance, active governance, Muna.
Well, I mean, the fact that it's all over the place now is a good thing. Like awareness is happening, maybe not in an ideal way now, but at least everyone is hearing about sustainability, about ESG, and it will be triggering. Some people who are curious would want to know more, even if they're not from the field. Into force, senior management would want to know about it. So this hype is, prepping the foundation for people to know better and to do better.
What are some of the trends coming up in the next 12, as I mentioned 2 to 3 years before, but perhaps it's a bit too far? What are some trends in 2026 are you excited about, or are you looking forward to within the sustainability and ESG space, personally or industry-wise?
I'm excited about the fact that now there are few sustainability hubs popping here and there that are running important events that include trainings and that are a bit beyond let's sit in a panel and discuss a topic and have sustainability practitioners come and listen to these topics. More people from other functions are coming on board, which highlights the fact that, more people are getting interested. So I'm excited about that and about being involved. I'm also excited about the fact that some companies are, getting like senior committees trained in the topic, the compensation remuneration committees, the nomination committees of big companies and board members getting trained in the topic, and also in companies that are involved only investments. How can they assess potential investments from an ESG perspective? A few companies are doing that, and I'm excited about this, and I'm looking forward to more companies coming on board and looking at ESG from different perspectives.
What is your final thoughts for the listeners based on what we've discussed today?
I just think it's that sustainability is a very interesting topic, and it's linked to so many. So I would advise sustainability practitioners to not use a lot of jargon, to make it accessible to all those interested. And for people who are in different functions other than sustainability, to be a bit more curious and give it the weight and the value it deserves. And I think this is where we need to start for us to move forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Muna, for your time, for these incredible insights, and also for the viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for joining in. As you would probably follow from season 1 to season 2. Promise to bring in a more practical insights to bring about the how. Season 1 was around the what's and the whys, and I'm glad that we got it. So consider subscribing and share this with a colleague or a friend who may benefit from these discussions and unique insights. So thank you once again, Muna.
Thank you, Enoch. Thank you.